Hey gang, Michael here with One Sky Astrology. We're back. We're going to close 2021 out with the last lunar cycle starting on December 4th. It's a solar eclipse happening deep in Scorpio. That's the stars of constellation Scorpio. That's right. So, we're going to be looking at this through the lens of constellational astrology or true sidereal astrology. And the full moon on December 19th will actually be taking place in between the stars of Taurus and Gemini, right in an area of the sky that's very close to the constellation Orion. And it'll be reflecting the sun from a solar conjunction to the galactic center. So we'll unpack all that, kind of what the basic flavor of that, what some of the more precise meanings that the cycle is going to contain for us all collectively. It's going to be the second solar eclipse of 2021. It's going to be the last cycle of 2021, and it closes with a series of eclipses that are considered somewhat fortunate. In fact, both eclipse series this year, the eclipse on June 10th was also rather fortunate. If you remember, it was about receiving insight or hunches, intuitions, dreams, actionable information from the stratosphere or noosphere or cosmic ethers. And this eclipse cycle that we're going to be seeing this month on the new moon is going to be the same as last month's lunar eclipse. So this solar eclipse is from the same series, the same family of eclipses as last month's lunar eclipse during the full moon. So let's take a look. Let's break it down, my friends. We're going to switch over to a 3D view. And we can see Sun here for the new moon, very close to Mercury in Scorpio with South Node. So these four bodies, or three bodies and an actor. So these four actors are populating Scorpio. When I see this, a couple things jump out at me. First of all, I see that Sun and Moon are very close to Antares. I see that Sun and Moon are very close to the cusp of the territory of constellation Scorpio and constellation Ophiuchus. And we're going to take a look at that. I'm going to take the opportunity during this video just to talk a little bit about Ophiuchus and how it figures in to the ecliptic, the band of the heavens that the planets and luminaries pass through, how it relates to Scorpio, and just a little about what it is and why we in this school of true sidereal or constellational astrology tend to observe it. So when we look at the whole breakdown here, everything that's going on, so when we look at the skies for this new moon, we see Mars in Libra, really squarely in constellation Libra. We see Venus with Pluto moving through Sagittarius. Saturn is transiting his home stars of Capricorn, and Jupiter is direct again after moving retrograde back into Capricorn, is now moving back into Aquarius. Neptune is likewise in the very early degrees of Pisces, her or its or their or his home stars, whatever Neptune is. And Chiron and Eris share that Pisces backdrop with Neptune. Uranus is in Aries, the realm of the stars of Aries, although technically a little closer to Menkar and the stars of Cetus, the whale. So yeah, like I said, I wanted to take an opportunity to look at Ophiuchus and kind of break it down, especially for people who are new to the channel. For anyone who's hung in this long, you might be a little curious. Well, you know, what the hell's he doing? So we're looking at the actual stars, because this is the way the ideas that form the foundation of our current astrological knowledge: tropical, Vedic, sidereal, constellational, otherwise, Hellenistic, Draconian, and any kind of astrology in existence has its knowledge base rooted in the actual alignments of the actual heavens. And it would be easy enough to just call this area of the sky Scorpio, but we can see really clearly that the stars of Scorp are pretty far south of the ecliptic here. So at this point here, where the tail of the scorpion is usually given, these stars are usually given a lot of importance and even sort of rulership, even though they're not in the ecliptic. They're given importance, more so than the importance of the stars of Ophiuchus, with the exception of Ras Al Hag. Ras Al Hag is an important star, but so many of these Scorpio stars are powerful and influential and just correspond with, you know, the changes and transformations that Scorpio is known for, that you can get away without really caring about Ophiuchus whatsoever. But when we get into the mythology of Ophiuchus, it gets really interesting, because Ophiuchus is always in every culture associated with the serpent power, the serpent bearer, Ophiuchus. In Vedic astrology, this constellation represented Parvati, or Uma, the goddess, the wife of Shiva. Really, this is sort of like, that's a mythological understanding of the Shakti. When we look at the word Shakti, it just means power. So Ophiuchus is always associated with the sort of visionary, feminine mystery of death and rebirth, and this primordial power, just the primordial power of the cosmos. And a Vedic understanding, the feminine principle in the gender polarity. Across the spectrum of gender, when you look and you isolate the feminine principle, the understanding in Vedic is that principle is actually dynamic. It's full of motion and charge and surge. And so in the West, due to our cultural conditioning, I think we have an idea about the feminine principle, in that it's sort of receptive, where it's kind of like it's a listener, where you have this idea about masculinity, where it's very go get 'em, very accomplishing, goal oriented, overcoming kind of energy. Makes good talkers, this modern Western idea about masculinity. In the Vedic, we're looking at a whole different thing. So when I talk about Ophiuchus as Shakti, what I'm saying is that this is the dynamic principle, but it's a subtle, hidden, very mysterious, very mystical, dynamic force, a very powerful and a very basic. Just, this is the core level of reality. So we're not talking about power like electricity or electromagnetic. This is just raw, the power of energy in the cosmos. And that's really highly associated with Ophiuchus in the Vedic. And the constellation Ophiuchus is always associated with the Kundalini mysteries. So Scorpio has always been known and understood to break things down to the point of forcing transformation. It just transforms. Ophiuchus represents the mastery of, or surrender to, in other cases, surrender to that process. And it represents a chance to explore the higher opportunity within that process of death and rebirth, of transformation and change. It represents then letting things fall away. It represents letting things fall away while staying oriented to the need to take responsibility, to take the high road. It corresponds to the urge to lean into something central to yourself, lean inward, to withdraw into a sort of central core and find out what's real, what's real here that doesn't change as everything else or as whatever's being affected by Scorpio Ophiuchus. Whatever in my outer world is becoming transformed, is changing in front of my eyes, to let that go, to make that way. And this is often the medicine that Scorpio and Pluto bring to us. This is often the medicine that Ophiuchus brings to us too. So what separates Ophiuchus from Scorpio? Well, Ophiuchus stands upon the tail of the scorpion. And I think this is obviously interesting from the point of view of sidereal mythology. Like we have to look at that and see, is there symbolism there? And when we look closer, we can see that this star representing the tail of the scorpion, Shaula, is in the same degree of the ecliptic. Like if we just took a line perpendicular to the ecliptic and we ran it north-south, that line would run through both the degrees of Shaula and the degrees of Ras al-Hag. So what we have is then, through the process of Ophiuchus, we, as bodies move through this, it's corresponding to an influence on that body where there are two roads. You know, there's a choice in many cases that I've seen. A theme of choice or a choice to be made, and it's a high road, low road choice. It's a whether we're going to take the poisonous path of the low road or whether we're going to choose to master the power of the situation, of the serpent, the power of death and rebirth, the power of transformation, whether we're going to sort of step into the driver's seat and kind of, use our illusion and co-create this thing, or whether we're gonna crumble and fold in the face of transformation and death, whether we're gonna hold on to the past and just white knuckle it, refuse to let go. That's why I'm saying that Ophiuchus is really an energy of making way, of letting go, of surrender and acceptance to change. So the star Ras al-Hag, interestingly, is Arabic. It means the head of the snake charmer. So this is the idea. We have to master the toxin. We have to master the difficulty of this energy. And when we do, there's great medicine in it. Again, it's interesting that poison and medicine are often the same substances, and the difference is actually dosage. And then, very interestingly, I don't usually take a look at this, but I'm going to this month. Very interestingly, we're going to look at the full moon, and we're going to notice that the full moon, while it's technically in Taurus, is really in an area of the sky that the ancient Babylonians would have ascribed either to Auriga or Orion. Probably Auriga, but the actual stellar relationship, the star relationship that the moon has, is a conjunction. It's within the degree of Betelgeuse. Alpha Orion. And so you could say that the moon is very resonant with Orion for this full moon. And Orion is in the Vedic is Shiva. This is very opposite, totally opposite in the sky to Ophiuchus. So Ophiuchus and Orion become a pair. And if Orion is the goddess, the serpent power, the feminine mystery, well, you can believe that the Vedic people in the Vedic tradition always associated Orion, the hunter, with Pashupati, the lord of the beasts, or with just Shiva in general. So what is Shiva? What is this? It's primordial consciousness. If the Shakti is primordial power, then Shiva is just raw awareness, the sort of cosmic ocean of consciousness. And so it's a very still principle. It's very still. Without the Shakti, Shiva would just never move. He would just meditate. That's what the mythology describes. And I love the idea that as an ocean of consciousness, what we are is just characters in the dreamscape of Shiva's mind. That this is Shiva's dream, and that we're just dreamers. So in that way, this idea of Orion is very, there's a lot of different takes on it. So I want to introduce this idea to kind of flesh out everybody's ideas about Orion. Like, oh yes, the hunter, he's got his club and his sword, and he'll mess you up. He's a bad dude. He's Orion. There's many different ways of associating these energies, interpreting these energies, and relating to the sidereal mythology above us and around us. It's very similar to the first Hermetic principle of the Kybalion, which is that all is mind. That idea of Shiva's dream, that just everything is mental, and that's the first Hermetic principle. So, just to take a little time and go down the rabbit hole that I've opened by mentioning the Kybalion, I do want to say that the other 6 Hermetic principles of the Kybalion basically describe the means by which astrology evinces itself to be somewhat of a science, somewhat actionable. The principles like correspondence, the second principle of the Kybalion is the principle of correspondence. So have this idea of as above, so below, which interestingly is a pretty accurate translation of the second verse of the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice born. So when you get into the Hermetic tradition, when you get into the Greek and Egyptian tradition of this wisdom school, this Hermetic, this sort of Hermetic alchemical wisdom school, is very, very, very resonant with astrology. So let's pull our head out of this rabbit hole and get to checking out this new moon. Thanks for hanging in. We're gonna break it down right now, my friends. All right, so now we have the chart of new moon, 4th of December 2021, and I gotta tell you, the first thing I notice, bam, Scorpio. The second thing I notice is that even though it's not listed on this stellar alignment chart, because of how I calculated it this month, the sun and moon are in degree of Alpha Scorpii Antares. They're within the degree of the orb of influence, which is, I believe, 2 degrees and 40 arc minutes, and they're about 2 degrees, I think, 17 minutes. So, because Antares is a massive star, it has a wider orb of influence. It has a wider orb of influence than most of the stars that you calculate for. It's an important star, and we're going to take a look at that, and that's why it's the second thing that stands out to me. So we have Scorpio, not just Scorpio, we have Antares. And then a third thing that stands out to me is we have actually a separating relationship with Antares, which means we're in the time of year of the heliacal rising of Antares, and that's going to cast a little bit different light on this whole thing too. So we're going to look at that. The third thing I notice is we're in degree of the south node, so this new moon is going to be an eclipse. So we got to talk about a lot of that. And the last thing I noticed is that the ruler of new moon, Pluto, is very closely going to be intertwined with energies of Venus. Now, Venus is the ruler of north node. Venus is the co-ruler of south node with Pluto. And this sets up a lot of potency, because Venus is also ruling Mars. So here we are. We have Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, all in to some extent under kind of Venus jurisdiction. With Mars, Venus is ruler. With the rest of them, with South Node, Venus is co-ruler because it's on the cusp, and with the rest of them, Venus is conjunct the ruler. And you really can't take a conjunction and make it two things. It becomes kind of a super planet, or like one thing. So we have this super planet, Pluto-Venus. This conjunction is going to run the show this month. This conjunction is going to be in charge. It itself is ruled by Jupiter, which is ruled by Saturn, and honestly that's great, because to have a transformational process, something that Pluto-Venus indicates, ruled by Saturn, could be nice. It could give us some stability to lean into. It could give some patience and reservation, discipline, and just kind of chill, grounded, pragmatic approach to response. And could give the whole month a sort of a stability and a steadiness that could be very, very helpful and will be there for us to lean into. All right, so Scorpio, let's break this down. Let's just break this down. Fuck. All right then. So we have Scorpio. We have Scorpio Ophiuchus, and let's just isolate that. Take a look at that. Scorpio Ophiuchus gets a pretty bad rap. Scorpio gets a really bad rap, and rightly so. And rightly so. But let's talk first about the likable side of Scorpio. Scorpio is fascinating to the core. You have the taboo. You have sex, death, magic, intensity. You have rebirth. You have psychological insight. We have the inner alchemy of Pluto and Scorpio. We have the secret. We have the dark. We have merging with another through the bliss of orgasm, or with the cosmos itself through the bliss of death. A sort of total merging, a kind of transcendent absorption into a sort of a merging and an absorption with the other, whether it's another person or it's just the life as other, right? You can merge with that. So there's a very spiritual, very transcendental, very liberation-oriented side to Pluto and Scorpio that we need to understand. It doesn't get talked about much. And then the word transcendental just gets sort of thrown around, but no one really talks about what that means. So there is a truly transcendental. Pluto does not like confinements and limitations. Pluto is ultimately on a journey towards liberation. Long journey towards liberation. Commitment, that's another Scorpio thing. And commitment from which comes total change. So you have all this sort of transformation and metamorphosis language when you talk about Scorpio, and these are all really incredibly valuable things that Scorpio offers. There are also very stressful things: transformation, metamorphosis, change. There's no way to undergo those processes without some breakdown, without some stress, some anxiety. So you're gonna experience this as difficult. And this is why Scorpio gets a bad rap, because even its powerful medicine is bitter. And with all that sexy mystery comes a really long shadow. So let's talk about the difficult side of Scorpio. Scorpio is correlating with fears, with phobias, with paranoias, with terror. Scorpio is correlate to destruction, to what we call, moralistically, what we call evil. to violence, even to sexual violence, to the macabre, to obsessions, to compulsions, to betrayals. All these are resonant with Scorpio. Pluto, Scorpio, Ophiuchus, it all has this crazy reputation. It has a reputation for just like, just tearing shit up, making it crazy, making it difficult, making it really challenging, and leaving you a different person through a difficult experience that will leave you a different person than the person before you had that experience. There's nothing to do about it. That's the action of Pluto. It's what it's going to do. It doesn't care about your feelings. It's not here to negotiate. So the best medicine for Scorpio, and right away something we can apply to this entire cycle, is to be open to change, to steer the change, to steer the change, direct the change, grab the change by the horns, and make the changes you need to make and want to make and have desired from your deepest level to make for a long time. This is that time. This is that time to make those changes. Don't fight the change. This is not a time to white knuckle it and hang on to the past. Many of us are kind of blessed in the last 2 years have like really sucked. I mean, total shitstorm. And so hanging on to the past is, a much less attractive option at this point for many people. However, the stuff that comes up this month, it's going to transform our relationship to ourselves. It's going to transform our relationship to others. We need to understand that's the action of what's happening. It's not good or bad. It's just evolution. So we can lean into that Saturn. This is pragmatism. When I say Saturn in Capricorn is pragmatic, it's is. It's not special until you make it special. It just is what it is. And this becomes really important because the star Antares. So let's wrap up Scorpio, Ophiuchus, and talk about fixed star Antares, Alpha Scorpio. I think that this star is very, very interesting. It's very powerful, and it also gets a pretty bad reputation. It's got a malevolent influence and is generally understood to be destructive. This is the destruction of Scorpio. If Scorpio is about transformation, then things move through Scorpio and pass Antares and get broke off. They get smashed up. They get broke down. And then as they move through Ophiuchus, as these bodies continue the journey through Scorpio Ophiuchus, they enter into a place where they can access the dark, mysterious, weird, formless alchemy that Ophiuchus represents, or they can, take that low road and succumb. Antares is the force of breakdown that Scorpio represents, like primarily. And sure, the whole stars of Scorpio are resonant with that idea, that energy, that archetype. But Antares is like the major focus. So what we have here is a star that gives power and intensity to any situation or arrangement it touches. It's one of the things Antares does. It just radiates power. It bestows power. Is it dark power? Let's be honest. This has a really heavy bent, a really intense and heavy energy. It's associated with the archangel Uriel, and Uriel was the archangel not mentioned in the public Christian sacred texts, but only mentioned in the Gnostic and secret texts. He was the one who held the secret knowledge of the great disaster during the shift of the ages, and he only revealed it to those who were judged able to accept it and still believe in the divine goodness that all things are. And I like Jamie Partridge, Astrology King. He wrote on his website that, like, well, that is very scorpionic to the core. So let's look at that again. We have Uriel. He's an archangel. That's power. That's a Scorpio thing. He's not mentioned in the public text, so that's secret. That's a Scorpio thing. He held the secret knowledge of the great disaster. You're getting it. It's totally Scorpio. This to the core, this basic description of Uriel's function is absolutely scorpionic. And he only revealed it to those who were judged able to accept it and still believe in divine goodness, right? Who can encompass the poison, who can really hold a space for that reality and still take the high road. So there you have it. This is Antares, and also characteristic of Antares is the power and courage to take journeys, to make moves, to have adventures, to undertake challenges that wouldn't even normally be possible. And so we can harness that this month. This is another important point about this month. We can harness that if needed. And Antares gives a lot of power. It gives awesome power. It's very unusual power. And it also gives the opportunity for the recipient of that power to then be their own undoing. So you have to understand this about Antares. There's always a test to pass during any journey or ordeal blessed by Antares, empowered by Antares. The power that is given generates some kind of situation around it in which there's a test of character. You'll have power, and that power itself will attract a test of character. The test is around extremes and being able to encompass those extremes that are presented without indulging in drama for its own sake or for the thrill of it. Antares and Scorpio generate these dramatically intense situations, like the power, the drama, the just the whole amazing story of it all is very well known to correlate to things in the vicinity of Antares. They become dramatic, but Antares doesn't like the drama to be indulgent. Antares doesn't like indulging in the emotions in any kind of like frivolous or narcissistic or extraneous way. And for that reason, Antares is often associated, if you look this up online, it's often associated with losing everything. But it's not that Antares made them lose everything. Antares gave them everything. And then Antares said, well, what are you going to do with that? Here's a test. They didn't know they were being tested. Does life work that way? Yes. Every day. Is it fair? No. Life's not fair. Don't listen to people who tell you life is fair or that it should be fair. But this is how it works. Some people get power from Antares. They don't even know that they're under observation, being tested. So here's the test. Avoiding drama to cultivate dispassion. And that's why Saturn's going to be so helpful. That's why Saturn's going to be so helpful this month. Also noteworthy, let's go back to that view. What we see is here that the sun is going to rise, and for the first time, actually, December 3rd will be the first day that Antares will be visible as Antares will be visible as the sun rises. So Antares will rise slightly before the sun, and it'll be like the morning star. It's called the heliacal rising of Antares. And when Antares is in this heliacally rising position, it's known to bring out very abrasive and ruthless tendencies, qualities. It's known to correlate to a certain kind of like just overpowering, kind of conquering impulse that gives very little emotional. It has very little emotional concern for the well, it's ruthless. It's ruthless, and that can be a good thing. To have ruthlessness can be a good thing if we balance it with sweetness. Because if you're ruthless and you don't have kindness, you can make terrible mistakes. You can really hurt people and hurt yourself. But a ruthlessness that's kind, as well as ruthless, you can really help people with. So this Antares energy, I'm not characterizing it as negative or bad, but just understanding there's an abrasive, ruthless quality to this whole thing that's going to be amplified on top of everything else we're talking about. All right, and then the last thing that I noticed here going on is that we have an eclipse. Actually, no, we have to talk about rulership here in Pluto-Venus. So second to last, we have an eclipse. Now, I talked about this eclipse last month, and I want to point out that video. The full moon belonged to this eclipse cycle. I also want to say there definitely at some point in the information chain was some kind of lack of clarity. There is confusion around this Saros cycle. The start date, is this actually the Saros cycle in question? Nobody I've talked to I haven't been able to discover, is there a typo in Bernadette Brady's work, or is there just something somewhere along the line is totally off when you compare scientific data, astronomical data, to then astrological data. Nonetheless, I do have reason to think that Bernadette Brady may be right. I'm not going to get into the issue beyond that. I want to thank my friend who brought this to my attention. Her keen eye is appreciated. So take this with a little salt. Take this with a quarter shaker. That's a quarter shaker. Take it with a grain of salt. This is one of those rare eclipse cycles that we don't have the full data on. Somewhere along the line, we lost the full data. What it looks like, most likely, is that this is a very joyful, happy family of eclipses with a sense of good news, of falling in love, or of appreciation of a peak experience that's joyful in some way. And these joyful experiences will give rise to benefits that appear in someone's life under this eclipse series. And those benefits can be expected to continue well after the eclipse has passed. And having talked about that, I want to move on. I want to talk about this Pluto-Venus thing, because this is going to be huge all month. We'll see as we break down the charts, the waxing quarter, full moon, waning quarter, next new moon. Pluto-Venus is going to be a main actor. So Pluto is ruler of the new moon from Sagittarius. So we have Pluto ruling Scorpio Ophiuchus, and with all due respect to all of the very innovative and powerful ideas about Ophiuchus's resonance and rulership and energies, I do give rulership of Ophiuchus to Pluto. And if you want to get really technical about Scorpio Ophiuchus and take a look at Pluto and its moon Charon are actually a dual planet, that the center of gravity lies between the two of them. And so in every way, I don't think you can really isolate them from each other. In every way, I think that they represent duality, polarity, transformation, and death and rebirth. Pluto is mutation, also regeneration, metamorphosis, linked to evolution, and it's resonant with the deepest part of our mind, the unconscious mind, the deepest desires or underlying prerogatives of absolutely anything. So it is the deepest, most unconscious sense of security, the deepest, most unconscious drive for security is represented by Pluto and Scorpio. This is just the most deepest, compelling profoundly compelling material in the psyche. And that's another reason for Scorpio's, like, wild reputation. Now, Venus, if you remember from last month, figured very strongly into things. She's very powerful and very emphasized. And now she's cozy with Pluto in Sag. So this all, as Venus passed the galactic center last month, ruling the new moon in Libra, we had a Venusian cycle. And now this Venus comes into contact with Pluto. It will be deepened, it will be intensified, there will be change. So any themes that emerged last month around self-love, self-appreciation, self-reliance, development of our values, of our inner compass, of material security, of relationships, or ability to connect with others, maybe something around listening, maybe anything around just appreciation. Any themes that emerged last month around those things may be carried forward into this month. And the theme that they carry can bring us into contact with a point of potential where we can engage in the alchemy of transformation, meaningful transformation, changing our state from caterpillar to butterfly, a total change, a total metamorphosis. And in Sagittarius, the action of Pluto and Venus together, Pluto's transformation and Venus's relationship to self and other, it's going to have the effect of expanding our horizons. This is Sagittarian. It's going to have the effect of expanding our spiritual potential and possibly even expanding our wealth. With Pluto and Venus, there could be a lot of opportunity to benefit. And a lot of that depends on where all these are in your chart. So when we see Pluto-Venus, right away, here's one thing everyone can do who's familiar with their own true sidereal chart. You can find out, where is Pluto-Venus? What house is this happening for in your chart? Where is late Sagittarius? And what area of your life is likely to be affected by this super planet, this great big conjunction? I usually talk a lot about the aspects, but I'm not really going to. One of the main reasons for that is we have basically this kind of three-pronged, simple, kind of real simple setup where the sun and moon they're making conjunction to Mercury. It's by far the most important thing they're doing. Secondarily, making conjunction to the south node, indicating that it's an eclipse. Of course, that's huge. That's very big. And then elsewhere, all we really see them doing that I find significant is making a trine to Chiron that is bisextiled by Saturn. And the connection to Chiron and the connection to Saturn is huge because it's going to allow this harmonious relationship indicated by the trine with our healing process and with the spiritual journey of resolving our traumas that Chiron represents. And it's going to allow these harmonious dynamics to be channeled and funneled in a Saturn way. They're going to be able to be channeled and funneled in a Saturn and Capricorn way. So what does that mean? Very stable, very patient, very grounded, very resilient, very unconcerned, very dispassionate, very practical energy. This is really going to help us get through that Antares test, right? Of, are we going to be dramatic? Are we going to be frivolously dramatic? But with Saturn there, channeling the healing, the journey, and the change and the passion of all this. Passion because Pluto and Venus together is passionate. Passion because they sextile Mars, increasing the passion. So we got to have all this passionate energy, and then we're going to have a force of nature that says, well, let's see how you handle that. Because if you're frivolous and narcissistic and silly about it, where you can't have that power, you get it taken away from you. Now, there's the only other thing the Sun and Moon are doing is an in conjunction to Uranus, which may have the effect of sort of maybe a little divorcing us from the last 4 or 5 months. The process that's been going on, we may we may want to experience like new process, or we may just feel like somehow disconnected. The quincunx is not a major aspect, although when it's this close, you do sort of see some effect. I'm not really convinced that it's major. We do have other major stuff going on. Interestingly, that has less to do with the sun and moon. For example, Eris and Pluto, for the first time, are out of 1 degree of orb. Now, they're still in orb. There still will be probably heinous displays of, all kinds of tragedy and malignance related to that. But it's the period of peak intensity is over, and as Pluto and Eris separate, which they will now slowly do, we will move out of the shadow that has been over us since late 2019, early 2020. And I do, for that reason, expect to see some significant improvement next year as we emerge from winter. By that time, Pluto and Eris will be, even further out of orb, and some other things will be in place that will probably give rise to the beginning. It looks like it'll give rise to the beginning of something that could eventually be a new normal. So we have also Saturn and Uranus, and they are close. Saturn and Uranus are making their third contact during this cycle, actually. The next new moon will see them separating for the last time. We talked about Saturn and Uranus 8 months ago for the March 13th, 2021 new moon video. I talked about the Saturn-Uranus cycle, its impact on finance, its impact on just cycles of power and information and change. All right, so I think the key thing to understand here is the Antares connection and really the strength that we have in Saturn to engage our healing, to engage our transformation, to engage our personal growth and evolution from the point of view of a Saturn-empowered, a Saturn-enhanced approach. So we can have patience with all this restructuring, right? We can have discipline within transformation. We can have stability within change. And that's the stress of change, is it throws everything. We cannot get thrown. Leaning into cultivating and exercising our Saturnian side is well within our grasp this month. And with that, I'd love to move on. I'd like to move on to the waxing quarter moon, and we'll start to look at the rest of the cycle. I'm going to spend way less time on each of these than on the new moon. The new moon sets the tone for the whole cycle. There's only 3 things here I see that are important at all. There's a lot of stuff that's relevant. A lot of stuff will be active, but the important things are Moon with Neptune, big conjunction here. Venus and Pluto are very, very close at this point. You can see they are less than 10 arc minutes from exactly conjoined, and that's big. That's going to be really big, because what we see with the waxing quarter moon is always the sort of emergence of the cycle. So with the new moon, it's like a seed. It's like, sure, you can plant it, but you don't even really know. Sometimes you know what kind of seed it is. Sometimes you really don't know what kind of seed it is until you see the emergence of those first leaves. And that's the waxing quarter moon. You start to see the pattern. So what looks like it's going to emerge is something that, with Moon and Neptune together, he's got high sensitivities. There's so much intuition and dreams and empathy. And it could be a real tuned in time here in Pisces. It could be a really spiritually sensitive time It could be a really emotionally sensitive cycle. That's the way that this may start to express as the Moon and Neptune come into conjunction. And Venus and Pluto together. You have relationship, Venus, polarization, Pluto. You have relationship intensification. You have projection-based struggle. Projection-based struggle. It's very important to understand this in relation to the square that Pluto and Venus are making to Eris. Yeah, they're out of orb, but it's still pretty close. It's still 1 degree and 20. It's still less than 1.5 degrees. So everything that the Pluto-Eris square brought, all the malignant, all the terrible, all the clouds of plague and the oh gosh, all the fascist and authoritarian dictators that we've seen, just everything, all this, that energy is merging with the Venus energy. So you have projection-based struggle. You have projection-based struggle, and challenges are going to need to be navigated and resolved in order to really experience the benefit, to taste the nectar, you get to climb the tree to get the honey. Right, there's a challenge to overcome here first. And then the other thing I noticed, the third thing, is that Mars is approaching South Node. And Mars going over South Node is really going to trigger some stuff. It's going to trigger sexual karma collectively. This is going to be a time when people who are also like Mars resonant, Mars South Node resonance, it's just, again, everything depends for individuals on how this relates to their natal chart. But collectively, this just sets up an opportunity for powerful karmas, conquering or overpowering karmas too. We have drive and motivation associated karmas, but more likely with Mars on the Scorpio cusp, we'll see war and martial and military karma. So the kind of sex and death kind of stuff, real deep, intense kind of stuff that we could start to collectively deal with, sort of this, whether it's on the level of our country or whether it's on the level of just human nature, like what is all that. We may dig up the past. We may connect with other people that we have some strong connection with, but that connection could be around, especially with the Mars square to Jupiter, power. Okay, so this is a power karma, and we could be working out power karma issues around this time. Let's move forward and check out the full moon. This is that interesting moon in the area of constellation Orion. We can see that the moon is 1.5 degrees out from Alpha, Orion, Betelgeuse. So the full moon is always going to represent the fruition or the manifestation of the highest point of energy in the cycle. So, the first thing we have with the full moon, we have a sun-moon opposition. So where is Moon? Moon is with Betelgeuse on Alpha Orion. And where is Sun? Sun is precisely on galactic center. So this means a couple things. This sets up a sort of situation here. Combined with the last 2 eclipses, with the Sun in Scorpio territory, and not the last 2 solar eclipses, but the last lunar eclipse and then this solar eclipse. So this eclipse cycle has been 2 eclipses, and those have been in Scorpio territory. So a Sun in galactic center conjunction is really going to initiate a new cycle of activity. This is kind of like the new year, right? It's December 19th. It's almost the solstice. And Sun is moving past galactic center, the point of death and rebirth. The Sun will be reborn around Christmas time. Does this sound familiar to anyone? So sorry, some kind of strange music, playing in my memory. Something you know, something vaguely religious. But no, in all seriousness, the sun resets at this point. We start a new year. The year takes on a new flavor. And as the sun moves around for the year, we do this thing. But every year, right around the end of the year, sun passes galactic center. And that's literally has more to do with why it's a new year than the difference between December 31st and January 1st in the Gregorian calendar. Like the church made that up to overwork people. Don't worry about that. This is actually, for all intents and purposes, the solstice event and the New Year event. Now, the solstice will always be the shortest night, and that is also an important cycle when it comes to low point and then rising again, a sense of rebirth and rejuvenation. That's more local. That's more having to do with local geometries. Then when you take it out to the galactic level, and you have sun aligning with galactic center, the supermassive black hole at the middle of the Milky Way, then you have we just start a new phase. Sun starts a new phase. So in that way too, we're also starting a brand new year. So in three major ways, we're just starting a new cycle, a new year. And that's nice. That's nice because the last 2 years have sucked. So, and see what we get. See what we get next year. For everybody individually, this new cycle of activity, represented by Sun Galactic Center, is going to be represented by the houses which contain in your natal chart the galactic center and the Taurus Gemini cusp and the area where Orion lives. So in my chart, the galactic center is like a 10th house, and the Gemini cusp is in 4th house. And what that indicates is that this next 6 months, this new cycle, what's initiating here, this kind of what's shaking up in order to generate more stability, what's transforming in order to stabilize, is going to have to do with my home work axis, signified by 4th house, 10th house. For someone else, this might signify a new cycle, really emphasizing like a 1st, 2nd house axis. Who am I and how do I relate to other people? For someone else, it could be anywhere. And for you to know where where the action is happening for you is going to be very vital as you start to tune into these cycles on deeper and deeper levels. I also want to say for this full moon, this new cycle, this post eclipse season kind of catalyst, this kickoff, we have a lot of blessing here. We have a trine sextile pretty close from Jupiter. We actually have Jupiter at 0 degree trine sextile, and the trine to Moon is actually, Jupiter's best aspect is the trine. It's kind of like its signature thing. Jupiter trines are just there you go, after you, please, no, dinner's on me, that sort of thing. Jupiter in Aquarius, very future forward, very, very willing to make change, very willing to embrace change. And another thing that is going to be part of the equation here of this full moon is Saturn and Uranus. Saturn and Uranus are very close to their third contact, so they're 37 minutes away, and this is going to affect the flavor of the full moon. It will bring to this full moon and this whole next year, and especially the next 6 months, this cycle of eclipse season, it'll bring an energy of rebuilding, restructuring, reforming, of futurizing, of updating, of modernizing, of making more efficient, making more functional, and finding new ways of being new ways of being, signified by Aries, being new ways, Uranus. Within these new structures and confines and systems, socially speaking, that we've got going on. Venus is out of a balsamic conjunction to Pluto and into a new phase conjunction, so we're moving past. And that is really interesting. Venus is also, interestingly, now stationed retrograde. So we have Venus and Chiron stationed for this full moon. Venus stationed retro, Chiron stationed direct. The Venus station for the full moon is likely to increase the intensity of any kind of transformative quality within this cycle. And the Chiron station direct is really going to give an imprint to, and this is trine Mars South Node. It's really going to give an imprint that these new karmas, or I should say these old karmas that are coming up again for review around Mars and South Node, it's going to give us a desire to heal them. If we have, like, in Scorpio, you could have powerlessness dynamics. With Mars, you could have sex, you could have conquering, you could have war, martial, military. You can have a lot of stuff that generates a lot of karma. And when those people come back together, and that karma is the magnetism that generates the dynamic of relationship between two people, that relationship can be challenged. So with Chiron, the healer, stationed direct, we're going to have powerful urge, a deep and powerful urge to rectify any kind of imbalances around this. South Node, always signifying the past, always, and Mars, signifying Mars things like sex and violence. A lot of karma there. A lot of karma. So, yeah, and that Chiron station direct is actually very closely square to Mercury. This Chiron station direct is going to be on our mind, thinking about how we can expand ourselves in Sagittarius through spiritual healing, Chiron and Pisces. And the square is going to present us with some challenges. That's just what a square does. So, altogether, what we see when we look at this is a cycle that invites transformation. It originated in the waters of transformation. A kind of caterpillar to butterfly process is at play here, and it's leading towards great stability. It's powerfully grounded, as almost only this realm of the sky really is, and assisted in the powerful grounding as this realm of the sky is when this guy sits here, and the other way around too, as this guy is when he sits in this area of the sky. So we have a lot of force towards stability, grounding, strength, gentle strength, patient strength. And things may be stripped from us. They really might be. Pluto doesn't mess around. Mars South Node could really easily strip things from you, but that is going to orient us to what is really important. It's going to strip extraneous things. It's going to strip unneeded things, and it's going to bring us actually into a forward momentum by resolving obstacles that keep us attached to the past. So things might be taken from us, things might be hard, things might change, we might lose, we might be stripped from, and it's important to understand that the action here is clearly indicated as aligning us with spiritual truth, which is always the case with South Node. When the taking of something is because of South Node, that South Node will always point you. Well, now you don't have your Xbox. Well, read a book. Here's a great book about sidereal mythology and astrology. It's like, I want to play Halo. South Node doesn't care. It's your Xbox is already, flames in a dumpster. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with here. We have, we have Mars with South Node. In this time with South Node and Mars together in Scorpio, resonant with this Pluto-Venus thing, this conjunction and this dance that now Venus stationed retrograde is going to go back over Pluto and then forward again. We'll have three contacts here. So we've made the first of them. And things might be stripped from us, but that's actually with a deeper purpose. So if you lose this cycle, if you have significant losses, those are to orient you to your spiritual purpose. Those are to orient you to your deeper sense of destiny and connection to the universe, the cosmos, the ocean of consciousness, God, whatever. These are not the disasters that are in any kind of bad interest or bad faith for you. These are the journeys we make, especially around anything we might be holding on to resistance around letting go. And now the waning quarter moon. We have waning quarter here in Virgo with the moon well distanced from any other bodies. And we have the nodes now in a Libra-Taurus axis. And I think the South Node is actually going to drift one more time back into Scorpio. But we keep getting closer to this early 2020. One of the hallmarks of early 2020 will be that the nodes will be entirely in a Venusian axis of the sky between Taurus and Libra until about June of 2022. So we're going to be dealing with transformation, and that always brings change. It always brings stress, and it always brings anxiety and accelerated aging process. And with the moon in anxious, stressed out Virgo for the waning quarter, as we look back on the cycle and kind of assess here right around Christmas time, and with this sort of nervous moon, classic nervous moon, and then with Mercury coming to join Pluto, Venus, we would really benefit here from recognizing the potential for stress. And this is right around Christmas time, and you just gotta, here's this moon trine up to that Saturn too. Like, Saturn is really here to assist us this month. So I don't want to hear anyone out there shit talking Saturn. He is definitely an ally, definitely a force to lean into this month. When things get grimy, just picture yourself dialing down the concern given notch to just dial it down to just 2, 1, 0. Just, however low you can go. It's not possible for everybody to just, be dispassionate and straightforward at all times. It's not even really beneficial to do that. But in this instance, to counteract the stress, change, anxiety of transformation at this scale, we want to lean into that Saturn, just like, the less you care, the better. Also, because of that Antares Sun-Moon conjunction for the new moon, we want to give as few fucks as possible this month. It's not always good advice. It's not a great lifestyle. But this month, not a month to give a single solitary fuck if you can avoid it. I don't usually give that advice, but yeah, you put it in the ballpark of that advice, and I'd probably still stand by that. Kind of joking, but not really. There's a lot going on this last quarter moon. We can always tap into acceptance and calm and pragmatism and strength with with this Saturn. But as we look back over this cycle, from which is the natural action of the waning quarter moon, looking back, as we look back, it could really seem like something was just way too intense, or like totally went wrong, or like, you know, as the solstice passes and the calendar year ends, I want to give everyone like my personal permission to just feel completely fucked up. And if you don't, that's great. You don't have to. You're not supposed to. But if you do, that is like, that is so natural. That is really natural. About the last year, like about the last 2 years, I mean, honestly, basically about anything you just feel bad about. This is really a time to like look at our sorrows, our wounds, our traumas, look at our healing, our recovery, our regeneration, our rejuvenation, and our improvement through personal transformation. To take stock of that. Sit down. Sit down with yourself and realize how far you've come this year. How this has tempered us, seasoned us, softened us, enriched us. Just be with whatever feelings come up, you know. If you feel good about things, hold a space for that. Feel good about things. You have every right to feel good about anything you feel good about. And if you feel awful about things, I hope that it helps you hold a space for all your difficult emotions. And I hope it helps you process, to know that this cycle of human evolution was not designed to make us feel great, not collectively. It's designed to push things to a flashpoint of stress and dynamism in accord with our need to evolve. All right. Looking at the next new moon, my friend, January 2020 sees a new moon on fixed star Nunki. I think Nunki is Beta? Oh, Sigma Sag. But it's a very close alignment. Very, very close. And Nunki is a very powerful star, and we'll look at that next month. And this is actually happening in the vicinity of Pluto-Venus, so we're going to have this rolling conjunction. Do we have Mercury, Mars? No. So what we have is Sun, Moon, Venus, Pluto, Mercury. Well, the theme of transformation and the theme of stabilization of a new sun cycle is likely to continue, and we'll probably see some settling into new patterns of self and other relationship, self-relationship and other relationship. And the process of Saturn and Uranus will be complete. Look at this. They are separating. So Saturn squares can cause feelings of confinement, and Uranus squares can cause anxiety. And man, if that hasn't been the template for like the last year, anxiety about being confined is like a universal experience. Yeah, I don't think I know anyone who really likes the level of just sitting at home and not being social that COVID and then this pandemic has demanded of them. And this is the 2nd of January, 2022. So we'll be kicking off a new year next time we talk. And, we'll be starting our journey into a new world in a really real way. So I want to encourage everybody to spend this deep winter discovering what it is that we want to create, discovering what we want to co-create, discovering and recognizing and investing in that so that we can emerge from this winter in an empowered way, blazing into 2022. And with that, I want to close. I'd like to wrap up. I wish everybody absolutely delightful holidays, and whatever you celebrate, I wish everyone a good solstice and this solar transition past Xibalba, the galactic center. I wish everybody well. Yeah, I wish everybody the absolute best that life could possibly bestow on them. And I'll see you next month, next year, for the January 2nd lunar cycle video. Thank you for watching, my friends.